Okay, I'm going to break this drawing down into steps that are way easier to follow than you might imagine, so that you can have a go, create this, and amaze yourself. Okay, so the app that I'm going to be using is Procreate, and I'm going to be using the default A4 canvas, which has the dimensions of 297 by 210 millimeters at 300 dpi. I'm also using one of their default color profiles, the sRGB, the code that ends in 2.1. In terms of the brushes, if you have the updated version of Procreate app, go to the libraries. I'm not going to use the Procreate library, I'm going to use the classic library, the older one. So you don't need to download any brushes. Whichever version of the app that you're using, you will have those. In terms of the colors, I've pre-selected a color palette. There is a link down in the video description that takes you to my Patreon page where you can download the color file for free to save you some time. However, next to the link in the description are the hexadecimal codes so that you can piece it together for yourself if you wish. Patreon, however, is the place that you can go and support this channel and gain access to exclusive content such as extended versions of most of these tutorials. I'd like to say a huge thank you to those people who do support me over at Patreon. It makes a massive difference. Thank you for that. And probably the most important way of helping and supporting this channel, if you haven't done already, is to subscribe. So thank you for that as well. And with all of that said and done, we're going to get started. So the first thing I'm going to do is go to the colours. I'm going to use the first colour on the top row. I'm going to drag it into the canvas from the colour circle and it flood fills the canvas. Okay, there might be a little bit of difference sometimes between the colours that you see on my screen and on your screen, and that's probably just the camera that skews them ever so slightly. But don't worry, as long as you've got the colour palette downloaded or the codes, you are using the right colours. It'll all come to make sense by the end of the tutorial anyway. I'm going to go to my layers and create a new layer, layer 2. I'm going to go to my colours, the second colour on the top row. I'm going to go to the brushes and use the soft brush within airbrushing. I'm going to put it to about 30% size, 100% opacity, and just the top, do a band of this colour. I'm going to go to the adjustments, the Gaussian blur, and blur it across to 100% all the way. Deselect. Go to my layers and create a new layer, layer 3. I'm going to stay with the soft brush within airbrushing, but I'm going to change to the third colour on the top row. I'm going to put the brush size down to maybe about 3%, 100% opacity. I'm going to do lines that come down. Press on a bit more as you come down, but it doesn't really matter. We're going to do a variety of lines. Some of them press lightly, some of them press a bit more. This side is going to be obscured by a really close to tree trunk anyway, so you don't need to worry about that. You can have some of them, you can go up from the bottom, have some of them kind of colliding as well. A few suggestions as we go. Like that, just some faint ones, and then I'm going to go to the adjustments, Gaussian blur, and blur that in to about 10%, and then deselect. I'm going to stay on the same layer, stay with a soft brush, have it maybe about 8% size, about 30% strength, and then I'm just going to create a kind of mottled look to this, some texture. There's going to be foliage on here, although we're conveying autumn or fall, there's still going to be a healthy amount of leaves on these trees. We need them, we're going to use them to really catch the golden glow coming through. So let's keep them useful. About 5% size now, same opacity, maybe just a few more bits near the top. Bear in mind where the tree trunks are. Doesn't need to be too densely populated with this foliage. Again, this is going to be obscured over the side, so don't agonize it over there. Maybe just some bits that are a little bit lower down. There's no particular detail with these, they're really sketched in. It's really loose. It's just a mere suggestion of the kind of foliage. Okay, I'm going to create a new layer, layer 4. I'm going to go in with the medium brush within airbrushing, and I'm going to go to the darkest colours we have, which is the fourth colour on the middle row. I'm going to put it to 10% size and 100% opacity, and I'm just going to blot out to about a third of the way, so maybe about there, and then just have it swooping down. So all of this is going to be a much closer tree roots, the bottom of a tree essentially. Let's turn that down, 5% size, some lumps and bumps as it joins the ground. And then we can have more lumps over here in the very foreground. And then that bottom section just a little bit bigger, just so we can fill it in. And it's not going to stay this black at all, but just to put everything else in context, it will help. I'm going to go back to layer 3, create a new layer above it, but underneath layer 4. So layer 5 is down there underneath layer 4. And on this layer, I'm going to go in with the medium brush with an airbrushing again. I'm going to use the fourth colour on the top row, 3% size, 100% opacity. I'm going to set another tree over here. And it's going to come down, and the base of the tree isn't going to come all the way down to here. We want it to be further away. And typically when a tree is further away, it moves closer to whatever the horizon line is. Now, in this case, the horizon line is roughly about halfway across the canvas. We can't necessarily see much of it, but the base of the tree, because it's a bit further away, is higher up and closer to that horizon line. And that's going to give us that sense of it being further back. And then we'll do another tree maybe about here. And it's going to come down to a similar place, maybe even stopping a little bit higher up, maybe just about here. Not much different. It's essentially in a very similar spot in terms of distance. Let's give it some shape. Obviously, trees fan out a little bit at the bottom to support the weight. You've got the tree roots that just spread. So I guess we can start to fill in some of the ground. It's not that essential. We're going to use a variety of different colours, but it does no harm to kind of map it in a little bit. It doesn't hurt, like that. And then, well, maybe there's one that's just a little bit even further back. So we'll put it down to 4%. And I'm going to do maybe a middle one here. We've already got a tree that's kind of there, so we'll just make a bit more of that. Now, immediately we can't see a difference in terms of where it ends in the ground. And that's not a problem. I might just make a couple of bolder trees in there, maybe another one here. Make a bit more of that one even. Going to have other textures that kind of blend them in a little bit as well. I'm going to go to the adjustments, the Gaussian blur, and I am going to blur them in slightly. Everything in the background is going to be a bit more blurred. So not to 10% this time, maybe to about 7%. Deselect. I'm going to go to that layer, tap on it and put on the alpha lock. I'm going to go to my colours. I'm going to go to the third colour on the top row. Go back to the soft brush with an airbrushing. 10% size, maybe 20% strength. And with this colour, I'm just going to maybe knock that one back a little bit, subdue it, put it further back, maybe with that one, maybe with anything that isn't that one and that one, the two that are in the real foreground. Now, I'm feeling like they're, even now, a little bit low down. And if you feel the same about yours, go to the transform, freeform. I'm just going to nudge it up a little bit. I want it to be much closer to the halfway point. Somewhere more about there. And then simply, we're on that layer still, we can go back to the fourth colour, put it to 100% opacity. Soft brush we're still on, and that's fine. So we probably need to turn the alpha lock off, otherwise we can't do very much. And then we can just fill that in. That works. From that layer, I'm going to create a new layer, layer 6. I'm going to go in with the fifth colour on the top row, and I'm still going to use the soft brush. 4% size is fine, maybe about 40% strength. And then just with this green, I'm going to use it just a little bit, pepper it through. I can turn it down a bit smaller actually, 3%. Get some of these bits of green. It's just going to be a little bit warmer as we get some of that foliage coming closer to us. Makes sense we get some of that green coming through. Again, we don't need to overdo it though. Just bits of it here and there. It is on a separate layer, so don't worry. If it goes a little bit wrong, we can always adjust it. I'm just going to either side of that tree. It is on a layer above the tree trunk. If we want any foliage to cut in front of it, that's fine. But if we're setting it back there a little bit, just stop it when you get to the edge of that one and then continue it on the other side. Let's go to the 6th colour, a note warmer. See this tree, I'm quite happy for the foliage to cut in front of that one. That makes a bit more sense for this one. Let's move along, 7th colour. Just a few lighter colours that have a little bit of a golden glow to them, which is going to relate to what we put over here. Okay, maybe just a touch of it in the ground in places, but not too much. Then with that layer, I'm going to go to the adjustments, Gaussian blur, and blur it in a little bit, about 7% again, and deselect. I'm going to create a new layer, layer 7, but importantly, it's still underneath layer 4. I'm going to tap on the N and scroll down to the Add Blend mode. I'm going to switch to the medium brush with an airbrushing, and I'm going to go to the last colour, the 10th colour on the middle row. Maybe 5% size, 60% opacity, and then now that we've got all the major tree trunks in place, we can start adding some points, like a bouquet kind of light twinkling through. Just a sprinkling of that. We don't want to overdo it. We definitely want the sense that light is coming from above, but we don't need to absolutely drown everything else out. Maybe turn it down a little bit, 3%. Maybe go to the 2nd colour on the top row. Turn it up to 10% size and turn it down maybe to 10% opacity. And just a few taps of that up near the top, just to kind of soften them through. Turn it down again, 5% size, and we can just tap some of that blue to kind of come down. And with that layer, I'm going to go to the adjustments, the Gaussian blur, and just blur it in a bit, maybe 5%, deselect. We can also ramp it up. I suppose we could go and slide and duplicate it. That really ramps it up. It might be too much. So we can always go on the top version, tap on the A, use the slider to control how much of that we want. We can still see it a bit there. Let's move it. Again, tap on the A, control the opacity of that. I don't want it anywhere near 100. Oh, somewhere about 50%. Turn it off and you can see it without, put it back on. I think it works, so I'm going to leave it at that. Take the top version, tap on it and merge down. So it's all in one layer condensed. I'm going to go back to layer 6 and create a new layer so it goes underneath layer 7 and layer 4. So layer 8 is now underneath layer 7. I'm going to go in with the soft brush with an airbrushing again. I'm going to use the 8th colour on the top row, 20% size, 20% opacity, and then just quite liberally add it to this area, and it goes underneath the bright kind of bokeh effect, so it's not going to dull that area. Just build it in. We want some of that glow to be pouring through. Don't overdo it though. Then I'm going to create a layer above that, and this time change the N to the Add Blend mode. So again, layer 9, it's underneath layer 7. Doesn't have to be, but as long as it's underneath layer 4, that's fine. But it's above the layer where we've just added that. So layer 9 is above layer 8. We're going to go in with the 9th colour on the top row, at 10% size, 10% opacity, and just start bringing in like rays of sun that might just be coming through. Again, just extending that kind of golden glow. Just from that direction, maybe turn it down 5%. And put it up to 30% strength, and then we can start adding more points. Got a tree trunk I want to preserve. I don't want to obscure it, so maybe just around it, but not destroying that one. I quite like that one. Maybe we can go to the 10th colour, turn it down more, low on that 4%, and about 50% strength now, opacity. I'm going to be a bit more deliberate with each point. A few near the top. Let's turn it up a little bit more. variety of sizes, so 4%, 3%. Collection of these, maybe even a bit bigger, 5%. Let's try the 9th colour with the same settings. Let's turn it down now, 3%. We're getting a nice sort of variety with this colour, 4% size. Back to the 10th colour. Again, let's put it up. This time 80% opacity. This is really quite strong. Let's take that layer, slide and duplicate it, which again is too strong. So we'll take the top version, tap on the A, dial it back to none, nudge it up this time, so about 30%, just gives it that extra lift. Top version, tap, merge down. I might just go in with the eraser on the soft brush with an airbrushing, 3% size, 70% strength. And again, I wanted to preserve that tree trunk. So I'm just going to cut over that, reclaim it, maybe another one there, reclaim it a bit, like that. With that layer, I'm going to go to the adjustments. This time, let's try the motion blur to the side, not too much, maybe 10%. Deselect. Before we leave this layer, stay on layer 9. I'm going to go in with the soft brush still, but I'm going to change to the 5th colour on the top row, 3% size, 20% strength. I'm just going to have some grass features that are just down low lying, which almost got this kind of blue tinge to it. So just a few taps of that on the ground. Okay, I'm going to go back to layer 6. I want some of that glow to be in front of the other colours we use. So from layer 6, we'll create a new layer. So layer 10 is down here. I'm going to go in with the 1st colour on the 2nd row. Stay with the soft brush, 3% size, 20% strength. And let's just start building in. I'm going more of a kind of horizontal dashes, sideways. And we're starting to build in some texture on the ground. It's important to leave some gaps. We don't want it all completely filled in. We definitely want some of this vibrant kind of, it's more of a green tinge, almost like a browny green, but it is green. We'll then go to the 2nd colour, which is heading towards more of an orange kind of sand-like colour, and we definitely want a fair bit of that to be influence everything. So a bit more of that. So spread that throughout. And then let's keep moving. The 3rd colour. Now this is significantly stronger, so put it to 2% size. We'll keep it at 20% strength. But we're going to have to be much more mindful now of this colour. It is pretty potent and a lot lighter. So we're not going to be as heavy-handed with it. Think about where the glow is coming. Sun rays hitting the ground here. We can add some dots and dashes and points, and we're just creating texture in that background, just to give everything a bit of context. Let's go down to this colour, the 9th colour on the bottom row. Same settings, we're going to really add in some orange. And when it kind of comes to the point where it's meeting this edge, which is the edge of the top layer, we're getting some really vibrant oranges by that point. Down here. Nothing is specified and detailed. We're just getting colours in to begin with and building up this impression. Now I'm going to go to layer 5. I had a kind of prominent tree silhouettes there. I'm going to tap on it and put the alpha lock on. I'm going to stay with the soft brush. Everything is kind of out of focus there, so it's fine to use this. I'm going to stay with the 9th colour on the bottom row. 2% size, 20% strength. The sun is pouring in from here, and it's going to have a strong impact on this side of this tree. So just some broken textures. It's just going to be hitting it here and there. You cannot add it anywhere outside really, apart from the other trees. But let's focus on this one. Let's not take it too high up either. And also on that tree, I'm going to go for the 5th colour on the middle row. As it comes around to this side, it's still going to have little bits that are catching the light, but it's going to be more the ambient light of the whole environment. So you've got some nice cool colours that are impacting the texture there. Then we can go to a green. Let's go for the 6th colour on the middle row. Start with some of the greens back here in the shadow. Again, blending in with the ground. Bring it over here. And back to the 9th colour. Just the slightest hint of it, that's too much. I don't really want to add too much to that. So just a couple of points of that there. Maybe just a super subtle hint of it there, and really not much. I think that's the tree that should have more of it. But we can go to a lighter colour. Let's go to the 10th colour on the bottom row. And let's just ramp it up in places even more. And I might go to maybe the 3rd colour on the bottom row and mix in some light green as it comes down here. I don't want to use too much of that green, but it kind of blending with the oranges on the ground. We definitely want some more vibrant greens to start impacting down here as well. We can't do much of that with the alpha lock on, and it's underneath the layers, so we're not too much with that. We're concentrated on that tree really, and that's working quite nicely for us. I think at this point we're probably ready to move on to the foreground tree. So we'll do that. We'll go up to the layer 4, create a new layer above it, but we'll tap on it and put on the clipping mask, which links it to layer 4. So anything we add onto this new layer, we'll stop. I'll show you that again. We'll stop at the boundary of layer 4 that it's linked to. So I'm going to change brushes. I'm going to go to the organic rainforest brush. Now, if you tap on the brush and go to stroke path, I'm going to put the spacing here up to 50%. It was by default at 27. Click done. And I'm going to go for a pretty dark green to begin with. So I'm going to go for the 6th colour on the middle row. Top end at 2% size and about 40% strength. And then I'm going to generally keep it in this kind of a round shape. You can imagine the light is going to hit the top of these edges. So you get little clusters and clumps of moss, little lumps of it. In fact, I'm going to put that up higher on the percentage. It is quite a dark green. So let's go for 80% opacity, which is pretty strong. We can always subdue this layer, which is why we do it on separate layers. So we can do it in little patches, little clumps, leave gaps, I think is the point. We want some of that dark colour to show through. Let's turn it up a little bit more. In fact, let's go for 4% size. And we can just sort of circle in clusters, clumps. Doesn't matter too much to begin with, maybe over here as well. So let's go for a more vibrant green. We'll go for the 1st colour on the bottom row, back down to 2% size, a bit lower again, and maybe about 50%. And then just top edge, catching the light a little bit. Again, we're just building up some of these greens, especially towards the edge. Have it kind of rounding off, so it feels like it's softening and rounding on that very edge. You can have little clumps and clusters that kind of come this way. Up here, maybe it starts to fragment and break apart. Up here. Okay, let's go for a bright green, the 2nd colour. And it's going to be a theme this, we're just getting brighter and brighter. And this is quite a lot stronger, a lot brighter. Let's just be a little bit more careful. So let's put that down to maybe 40 and slightly lower on at 2%. I'm going to pick out some round shapes. Identify some of these little bumps. Let's just add some little, again, more kind of round shapes to help describe little lumps. One to come back here. Just by using that hump shape, you're going to build in that effect. Let's go along, third colour. Oops, still prefer this. Third colour. Keep these shapes going. Again, just these edges. Move along. Fourth colour. We're really getting a lot brighter now. So use that along the edge. Just go over that edge so we get nothing but that bright colour at the very edge. We've got a strong sun, so it makes sense that it will at the edge just be nothing but the brightest. And there's going to be a few areas just coming around that catch the light in a very similar way too. Let's move along. We've used the fourth, the fifth. It's getting very potent at that point, so we are just going to have to be a little bit more careful with it. Like so. Okay, so we're starting to get a real sense of difference in depth. We'll come back to that. What I might do is just create a new layer, layer 12. I'm going to go to the charcoals, burnt tree. I'm going to go in with the fifth colour on the middle row. 5% size, 20% strength. And I'm just going to create kind of like a blocky shape, like that. In fact, it might need to be a little bit stronger. It's quite a subtle effect otherwise, 40%. I'm just going to do it as a series of, I wouldn't say rectangles, but just almost angular blobs like this. And it can be a variety of different sizes, but maybe they kind of run almost as a line. Then they could be smaller too, and then they kind of intermingle with the moss. Let's look at our colours. Maybe the green, the sixth colour. Can add some green intermingled with it. Probably need to use some brighter colours. Let's go for the seventh colour. And as we come around here, it's going to start catching a bit of that sun glow, the light. Again, there's blocks, there's lines of this, and then it kind of can meld in with the moss. Let's go along. Eighth colour. And as it gets to the edge, just like we had the light green down there. Tap some of this in, we can even turn it down, 3%. Get some smaller textures in there. It probably needs some slightly warmer colours. Maybe the 10th colour on the bottom row. Let's get some of that really nice warmth in right at the very edge. Back here as well. Again, let's just put some little bits of texture in the gaps, fill it in places. So that warm glow can just start to feed back into the cooler areas, just in places, not too much. Zoom out, keep checking it. I'm going to go to the, well, maybe the 9th colour in the middle row. With that layer, I'm just going to go in with the eraser. It's a bit strong in places with the soft brush. 10% size, 20% strength. Just subdue it on this side, maybe a little bit more. It needs to be kind of the impressions in the shadows. You can always go back and add more highlight. But speaking of highlight, I probably will create a new layer, layer 13. Tap on the N, put it to the add blend mode again. Go in with maybe the 10th colour on the top row. I'm going to go back to the airbrushing soft brush, 2% size, 20% strength, zoom in. And along this edge, I'm going to build in fact turn it down even more, lower on that one, 2% even. And just make a bit more of these lumps on the edge, a few points. exaggerate them a little bit more. It really brings in that light, binds it better, quite effective. Zoom in. A few more places here. Be careful we don't want to overdo it, but I think the glow is really important to this image. It is such a major part of the overall look, the effect of it. We shouldn't neglect it. Let's go and add some more. You know, it's still just about bouncing around and impacting this side as well. Not as much. I might go back to layer 11, tap on it, adjustments, Gaussian blur, blur it in slightly, 3%, deselect. I might just take layer 12, tap on it and merge down. At this point I can probably take layer 11, tap on it and merge down. We're just reducing the number of layers. It's probably more efficient layer wise. On that layer we don't have the alpha lock on or anything restricting us, so I'm going to go to the first colour on the bottom row, back in with the organic, rainforest brush, 2% size, maybe 50% strength. And well, I'm just going to start building in some moss in places on the ground. I might even go for it a bit bigger, 3%. And well, we could just be adding a little bit more here and there. Extend the moss up into one or two places. Bring it on the ground over here. Let's go for the, whoops, go for the second. In fact, let's go to the third colour. Skip the second colour. Just make it more impactful sooner. Again, just add bits of this moss. Then we probably need to start adding some different colours here. So I'm going to go for, well, actually, no, I'll go for the seventh colour on the bottom row. Stay with the organic rainforest, put it up to 4%. And we've just got a slightly cooler colour coming in down here. Just in patches. Let's go backwards to the sixth colour. And just in one or two of those areas, it's going to be a bit lighter. Let's go perhaps to the seventh colour on the middle row. I'm going to go back to the airbrushing. Where were we? Airbrushing, soft brush, 2% size, 30% strength. And we're just going to do some twigs, different direction, like maybe like pine needles or something. A mixture. Different directions. Just so we've got some nice textures there on the ground. We'll create a new layer and I'll go in with the 8th colour on the bottom row. Perhaps I'll go to the medium brush with an airbrushing, 2% size, 70% strength. And I'm just going to have a suggestion, a leaf here, and I'm not going to spend a huge amount of time articulating it. Just a leaf that's maybe got some points to it. You can see here some like spikes, and I'm not going to overly articulate it. I'm going to go to the 9th colour. Let's turn down maybe 30% strength. Just some points of it. In fact, let's go to it and tap on it, put on the alpha lock. Okay, I'm going to break this drawing down into steps that are way easier to follow than you might imagine, so that you can have a go, create this, and amaze yourself. It allows us to go at the edges and just tap in. Oh, there's light just catching the edges. Maybe put it up 4% and just lightly graze over it. And then we can go back to the darker colour, the 8th colour, turn that brush down 2% and higher up 70%. We can just run some lines, the veins of the kind of branch structure within the leaf. It doesn't need to be overly articulated. Let's go to a brighter colour. Let's go for the 3rd colour on the middle row. Again, the alpha lock is on. Just 1 or 2 little points. Maybe it's just folded here and it's just catching the light. Turn off the alpha lock and adjustments, Gaussian blur, and just blur it in 3%, deselect. And it's sufficient, it's detailed enough. Maybe we could do a couple of these type of leaves or suggestions of leaves without really going overboard with the detail of it. So ninth colour, still the same brush, 3% size, 40% opacity, and well, I'm just going to do hints, suggestions of bits of leaves perhaps, without going into the minutiae. In fact, I'm going to go back to the third colour. There's just a point here, perhaps where there are some points where the sun is catching something very intensely. Just the other side of this edge. And then back to a more subdued version, so the ninth colour. And well, let's go for another leaf here, I suppose. Again, just some kind of spiky points on a leaf. Again, if it's kind of squashed and crushed, it doesn't need to be overly articulated. Maybe the third colour, maybe turn it down, loan that 2%. Little stem. Again, tap on it, put on the alpha lock. Let's go for the 8th colour on the bottom row. 2% size, 40% strength. In fact, even less on the strength. Let's go for 20. You can just run. Suggestion. In fact, let's put that up higher. 5 or 6% size, and just maybe slightly more in the shadow. So one side of it, let's just subdue. We can always pick up a little bit with the third colour on the middle row. 3% size, still only 20%. Maybe there's just bits of it that catch the light more. Just a hint of it there. Maybe underneath it needs to have some shadow, so let's go for the 4th colour on the middle row. Maybe underneath the leaf, let's put the percentage up. We've got the alpha lock on, we do, don't we? Let's turn it off. Important to remember that. So 3% size, 40% strength. Sometimes it's very easy to forget that you've done the alpha lock, so a bit of shadow underneath. Gives it a bit of sense of presence there. Let's go for maybe the 7th colour on the middle row. Again, some debris, bits of leaves. Maybe that could be part of a bigger leaf that's, again, just hinted at. A variety of little shapes down here. Off the edge of the bottom of the canvas even. And there. See, a little bit goes a long way. Back to the top layer and back in. Let's go for the 5th green on the bottom row. Let's go back in with a soft brush again. 2% size, 30% strength. Let's just pepper in, build in some of that highlight. Got some moss down here that's going to catch the light. It's kind of really in the line of the sun as well. It's quite nice. Getting some bits down here. Bits there, backwards of that edge. Back in with maybe the 3rd green, and then back here they can just be a little bit more of that green. Let's go to the 10th colour, just extend that little bit of a golden glow back there, not much, just a bit more. Up 3% size, and yeah, again a bit more on the ground. Okay, you could leave it and just have it as a completely natural, kind of authentically nature-like landscape. But I'm going to add a little bit of whimsy, a bit of magic here. So we're going to add a little kind of pixie door. So we'll create a new layer, well, it's also called layer 13 because we condensed layers. I'm going to go to the 4th colour on the middle row. I'm going to go in with the medium brush with an airbrushing. 3% size, 100% opacity. So we're going to create an arch. It doesn't have to be perfect, just hold it. And it snaps to a better version of it. There you go. We'll do a line across, hold it so it snaps, and then we can just drag to flood fill. A little gap around it, we can just fill it in. With that layer, I'm going to tap on it and put on the alpha lock. I'm going to go in with the sticks brush within drawing, 5% size, 50% 50% strength with the 7th colour on the middle row, just to a line that follows the arch and hold it. And we'll keep doing that. One that's slightly indented, a bit narrower. We'll keep roughly following that line best we can. Sometimes it might be a little bit off, and that's not a problem, but we'll do our best anyway. Make sure you go right to the edge sometimes. Let's just run around there. Okay, let's change colour. Let's go to the 9th colour on the top row. And just bring this round. Get near the edge as much as possible. Another one. And another one. You can see you've got this kind of texture around, so I'm going to go to the adjustments, Gaussian blur, and just blur it in slightly. Not a lot, 2%, deselect. I'm going to go in with the smudge, put the smudge on the medium hard brush within airbrushing. 5% size, maybe 40% strength, and I'm just going to bring this round. I'm not going to lose the texture completely, it still had its influence. I'm going to turn off the alpha lock, slide and duplicate that whole layer. The top version, I'm going to go to the adjustments, the hue, saturation and brightness, and turn the brightness down to none. Deselect. And then going to go to the transform, uniform, pull it in from the corner. I just want a really nice crispy edge. I've already got a bit of an edge anyway, but I'm going to use this to just be really crispy. Concentrate on getting it near the top, and then you can go to freeform and just pull it down. Freeform's probably better really, just for lining it up. Like that, deselect. And then on this version, tap on it and put on the alpha lock. Again, we're going to go in with the sticks brush within drawing. Again, we're going to go, well, this time 7th colour, and from the middle, pull down. And what we're on, we're still on the 5% size, 50% strength. I'm going to bring down some lines. Keep it going. You don't have to do all of them with a snap. You can do it a bit more freehand if you want to. It's just like we're building in a kind of wood grain to a point. Then I'm going to switch to the, I'm going to use the 9th colour on the middle row. Put it to maybe 10% size, but turn it down, 20% opacity, just drag some lines through, up. And just up and down through that whole area. I have pretty good coverage. I don't really want any of those dark streaks to remain for the most part. If you do, just go over them, make sure you've kind of catered for it. You see the whole thing's a bit wonky, I'm not too bothered about that. On this version I'm going to go back in with the airbrushing soft brush. With the whole layer, I'm going to go to the adjustments, the Gaussian blur, blur it in, again to about 2%. Again go in the smudge, medium hard brush. I'm actually going to turn it down to be weaker, about 20%, 8% size, something like that. And just a little bit of smoothing, but I don't really want to do too much. Like that. Then going to go back to the brush, put the brush within airbrushing to the, well, let's go for the medium hard brush. 4th colour on the middle row, 3% size, 100% opacity, and then I'm just going to bring it round. I'm going to hold it till it snaps, and I want that kind of straight dark edge here. And then as it comes around this side, we get a slightly thinner version. Let's take it round, hold it till it snaps, and we've got a bit of control over it. Let's just do it manually. It doesn't have to be absolutely pristine neat. But a little thin dark edge around there and a thicker one there. Zoom out. And then we're going to do it to 1%, not at the bottom of 1%, 100% opacity, and then a line down. and then another line down. And we're going to try and keep it relatively consistent best we can. We still just about see it, even though we've got grain as well. Like that. Let's go to a lighter colour. Let's go for the 10th colour, and then each of these kind of boards, we're down to 1% size, 20% opacity, and then we don't need it to be pristine neat. We've got a kind of rustic look to it, but just onto the left side of that black line, or the leading edge of one of the boards in the door, depends on how you perceive it. We're just going to have a bit of a highlight. You can do it as one continuous line, and again, you see it's gone a bit wonky, and I'm not too bothered. I think it can add to the character. Kind of hand-built, almost like a living edge, bit of wood. For all the carpenters out there that are watching this, probably really unnerved by how unprecise these are, but there you go. Okay, with the top version of layer 13, tap on it and merge down, so it's all in one layer. We'll transform, move it into this position, go on freeform. You need to kind of shrink it down so it fits. However works best. Pinch it in. Now this little bit we can always erase, so it almost goes behind that section. We'll get it roughly where we want it to be. Once we're happy enough with the general position, we can transform, distort from that bottom right corner, bring it up, and we can bring a different line there, bring it down, and make sure that that line and that line kind of go up vertically. We can just manipulate it so that it does this kind of a shape. So you can imagine it would go off to a vanishing point. Transform again, just rotate it if you need to. I'm quite happy enough with that. With the eraser to the soft brush with an airbrushing, 100% opacity, maybe 4% size, and I can just delete some of that, turn it down, 20% opacity, and just settle it in, remove some of that, add a bit of shadow, zoom in. Stay on that same layer. We'll go to maybe the 7th colour. Let's go to the soft brush, 2% size, 30% strength. A little bottom bit where the door meets. Texture on the ground. It needs to obviously tie into the little environment that we've created. Otherwise it's not going to look like it belongs there. It's going to be disjointed. So let's go for a warm colour, the 9th colour. Bit of continuation of the colours. Getting a bit closer to feeling like it belongs there. Let's go for the 6th colour on the middle row. Stay with the soft brush. We did use the organic brush, but we can use some of this green with this soft brush just to be a little bit more tightly controlled around the edges. And just around here, so it just really ties in neatly with that door. Let's go to another green. Let's go for the first green on the bottom row. Again, let's just tie in some of that nice green moss. So it closely kind of hugs the door. Make it feel like it belongs there. Let's put it back on the alpha lock. Go in with the 3rd colour on the middle row. We're on the soft brush with an airbrushing, 2% size, 20% strength. Let's zoom in. We can just add a bit more highlight in places, tucks in there, maybe a bit of highlight in here. Not much. Turn back off the alpha lock. I'm going to go in with the 4th colour on the middle row. I'm going to go in with the soft brush still, top end of 2% size, 100% opacity. Let's create a little black door handle. Let's go in with the 8th colour, turn it down, lower on that 2% and about 20% strength, and just slightly up the top right bit of that little black circle. A lighter colour, and then the 10th colour, turn it down 1%, and just tighter again, just in there. So it creates a real sheen, maybe 1 or 2 patches, so it's not too excessively bright. And then on the other side, maybe we'll go for 10th colour, just so it's almost got a secondary light there, like so. And then 4th colour again. And then on the other side of that little sliver, we're going to have a shadow. So we're just building in a bit of shadow there for it. Doesn't need to be massively overdone. Enough to get the idea. With the black and the soft brush, 1%, maybe 80% strength. Let's just create some little divisions there. Divide that door up, and we can run some more lines. Just maybe exaggerate the sense of a bit of grain in the wood. Maybe just slightly over exaggerate, it doesn't matter. Now, I feel like the middle of that doorway could be a little bit more exaggerated, so on that, I'm going to go in with the selection. Freehand, draw around that middle bit, neatly as we can. Close the loop. 3 fingers down, copy. 3 fingers down, paste. That means we've got a duplicate of that inner bit, and we can tap on the N, scroll down, put on whatever we want. We put it on add or screen. I like add. In this example, it just brightens at the door. I feel like it brings some of that light round. Stay on that same layer. 3rd colour, 3rd green, 2% size with the soft brush, 30% strength. A bit more onto this side here. Maybe just some little bits of clumps down here. Above. A few tufts working their way up. A few down here. First colour. I will stay on the same layer. We've got that add blend mode on, which is really useful. We'll go in with a soft brush, 10th colour on the bottom row, 10% size, 10% opacity. Let's just ramp it up here. Bring that glow in a little bit more. A few kind of suggestions of the direction of sun rays. Doesn't need to be overly done. A few of those. I'm going to create a new layer, layer 15. I'm going to go in with the black colour, the 4th colour on the middle row. Soft brush with an airbrushing. 5% size, 30% strength. I think I want to just make areas here in the kind of like the foreground, just that little bit darker. I want to shut down some of the light. So underneath the leaves, for example. Areas here. Then I'm going to turn it down 2% size and 40% strength. I'm going to break up this area. Extend some of the little dark areas backwards a little bit. Just break up that region, give a little bit of kind of focal texture. Some points in here. Like so. And then I'm going to change. I'm going to go to the 9th colour on the top row. Turn it down to 1% size, 40% strength still. And I might just take some, maybe a little bit more actually, maybe just at the bottom end of 2%. Create some little twigs, might be connected to leaves in places. You can sort of crisscross, go in different directions. Definitely want a variety of kind of textures on the ground level. Move over here. There's going to be just little bits that stick up, catch the light. Different directions. Try to vary it up a little bit. I'm going to blur some of this foreground in anyway, but it's good if we've got some textures, even when they start to get blurred in. It kind of reads even through the blur. Let's go to some lighter colours. Let's go for the 9th colour on the bottom row. And well, we can exaggerate some of these. Not everything has to be a distinct leaf shape, but it could be a section of a leaf that's kind of folded over. Just a little crumpled up part of one. Doesn't need as much articulation and detail necessarily. Some pieces through there. Maybe just go over some of this area with some more orange in places. Break it up. I think it actually improves it. Again, back in with the black, 4th colour. Back in with the airbrushing soft brush. 2% size, 40% strength. I just want to make some of these little mounds and lumps just a bit more prominent. Back here, maybe a bit more green. 5th colour on the top row. Bring some of that green back there a little bit. Not too much. 3rd colour on the middle row, and I'm going to go back to layer, well, this inserted image where we had the add blend mode on. So the layer underneath, layer 15. And I just wanted to really vibrant touches on the ground. I don't need to do a ton of that. Makes sense if it has it over here though, just a bit. I'm going to go to the wrench, add, copy canvas, and paste. And then we've got a whole version of that image. I just need to perhaps just drag it up to the top, up here. Then selection, rectangle. And I'm just going to grab the bottom section there, feather, turn it up to about 30%, blends it through. Then I'm going to go to the adjustments, the Gaussian blur. I'm going to blur it in maybe about 7% and deselect. Now you can see it's just blurred it in here, and that just allows this section to be extra crispy and sharp and then blurred out back there. So it gives quite a shallow depth of field, a kind of photographic aesthetic. Okay, and on that note, I'm going to leave this here at this point. I will extend this a little bit further over at my Patreon, refining some of those little details. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to hit subscribe. Thanks as always for everyone's support, and I look forward to seeing you back here soon. Bye for now.